Hello, and thank you for joining. This is Shauna from Live the Season Life. I appreciate you being here, and I would so appreciate if you'll be interested in following me and subscribing. That would be wonderful. That's my air fryer. I have in here salmon. I wasn't expecting it to go off that quickly, but it's time to turn it. And comment down below if this is you. I just out of ease of whatever, I don't actually turn it all the way. I just kind of shake it around a little bit. But those are salmon bites, and those are gonna be for dinner. I'm cooking a bit early because this is what works in my schedule. And in addition to salmon bites for dinner, we're gonna do some collard greens and some brown rice and crispy chickpeas. It's gonna be a bowl. And in my mind, I'm gonna make a dressing, and the dressing is gonna have ginger and maybe some turmeric. No. Ginger and garlic and lemon and such. Oh my. And the reason that I'm doing this is because, or doing the greens in particular, I know typically we think of, or at least for my household, having grown up in the South, I think of collard greens as something that you eat, for holidays or special occasions. Well, this is not a holiday or special occasion, but I was interested in a leafy green, and I wasn't quite sure what to pick, so I just grabbed some collards. And I was gonna, as I sit here and pick these collards, my mom, whenever she picked collards, she would always throw all the stems away. I don't mind a stem in my collard greens. I don't. Do you? Let me know. And I'm gonna do the way that I was taught, which is you pick the greens first, and then you wash them several times before you, of course, cook them. So I think my refrigerator setting is a little low because these feel frozen, actually. Whatever. I'm just gonna pick this excess stem off, and I'll probably feed this to our pet bunny rabbit because she's always down for an extra green or two. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I am off of the heels of the conference. So I mentioned it before, and this actually in my video where I talked about the 300 samples of the spicy seed mix that I made, which by the way was a hit. So we had the conference last week, which was the MIND conference, the MUSC Institute for Neuroscience Discovery. And it was a raving success. We had, the day one, which was all about health and wellness, which is where I focused my time and energy with regard to my booth and having health and wellness foods available. And I'll actually link something somewhere, probably in the description box below. One, with the link to the last video that I did about the 300 samples. And number two, with some recipes and such for the items that I prepared, because they were a hit. I think the things that stood out to me the most were, it just occurred to me, I was supposed to be telling you about why I got collard greens. And I clearly segued. What I meant to finish saying, and then I'll get back to the conference, is I was looking for a dark leafy green. I might be having a perimenopausal repeat myself moment, and I'm not gonna edit this out. It is what it is, this is life. I wanted a dark leafy green. So here we are with collard greens in the middle of the summer, which is fine. All right, so the things that stood out to me with regard to my booth in particular was that there were some people, so I had the spicy nut mix, which is a combination of pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. This is the personal stash that I have at home. Pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds roasted in turmeric, salt, pepper, black pepper, cayenne pepper, and garlic powder, and a little bit of olive oil. And just let it go. I'm gonna turn this air fryer off because I'm pretty sure the salmon is, it's all the way done. It's all the way done. It was an absolute hit. It's the great thing about the seed mix is that it's not super spicy, but the cayenne just gives it a nice little kick at the end. So even if you're not like a spicy foods kind of person, you'll still like it. There was that, and then there was the dark chocolate date bites, which included something super simple. Just grab some dark chocolate and grab some dates, and you're good. And it's a nice little snack when you're looking for something sweet and chocolatey, but you don't want anything that's gonna be super naughty. It's great for that. And I love the fact that there were people who had never eaten dates before. There were people who had never eaten, had never had bittersweet chocolate before. Now I see the cameras over there, sorry. Never said bittersweet chocolate before. And it was just a blessing to be able to educate people based on my knowledge. And I was very clear, and I remain to be clear in this, that I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. I just read up on this stuff and I enjoy it. And I was able to learn from some folks as well, because there are, what was interesting about this conference was that there were people there who were patients, and these are patients who are super knowledgeable and have gone the next step, which is to figure out how to adjust their nutrition to support their best life given their disease, whether it's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or, a brain tumor or Parkinson's or whatever the case may be. So I learned quite a bit. I picked up a couple recommendations for some books. So I'll be checking that out on Audible. But it was a really great conference. So off of that, I had kind of a bit of a high around, eating healthy and wanting to get some more dark leafy greens in my diet. And my kids have not been eating the healthiest this week. Given the conference, we've been so busy. They have had pizza, they've had Jersey Mike's, they've had Chick-fil-A, they've had all the things, none of which contribute to brain health or a healthy diet, aside from the fact that they're merely eating. So I wanted to kind of get us back on track. And thankfully, my son loves my collard greens, so I'm not worried about him eating them at all. My daughter tolerates collard greens. I don't know why, but maybe she likes them more than I give her credit for, but we'll see. My husband loves everything I cook, and I love the collard green recipe myself. And these are organic, so I'm looking specifically for if there are any little critters and things that have hitchhiked their way to the grocery store and now into my kitchen. I want to make sure that they're gone. But I'm going to wash these really well before I actually cook them in the pot. I made the mistake. This happened a couple of months ago. One of I have a neighbor, and she's fantastic. And her kids have a bearded dragon as a pet, and the bearded dragon eats turnips. And usually, she doesn't need a lot of turnips, but if you buy a bunch, she only needs like one leaf, for example. So she'll give me the extra turnips for the bunny. Well, because my bunny is so bougie, she stopped eating turnips. And so I decided, okay, well, I have the turnips. I'm going to just cook the turnips and eat them. I forgot how dirty turnips get, because I washed them a couple of times and thought I was done. And then at some point, something said to do this number with the leaves as I'm preparing to put them into the pot. And sure enough, sand comes off of my fingers. And by this point, half of the collards had already been cooked. So I'm tasting and such, and I realize there's dirt in the bottom of my pot for my turnips. So I have to throw these out. Haha, funny jokes on me. I ended up, we didn't have turnips that week. It just was what it was. So I'm gonna be very careful to clean my collards, not once, not twice, maybe 3 or 4 times, who knows. But, anything you can do to kind of get rid of any bugs, critters, and dirt. But the thing about collards is that, and I actually have some collards growing outside, the way the leaves grow, they're not gonna get nearly as dirty as a turnip green would. Because turnips are turnip greens, I'm gonna get it. Turnip greens are the leafy green from the turnip root. And the turnip root, of course, grows underground. So when you pull it up, all that sand and dirt's coming with it. So what are you gonna do? The colors, you don't have that problem because they grow above ground mostly. So that's the plan. I'm gonna have these, I'm gonna do the brown rice, like I said, the salmon bites and some crispy chickpeas, and we're just gonna see what dinner is like. So there are 3 takeaways that I have from this conference, and these are not specific to brain health. These are life lessons, life kind of, realizations, inspirations, and things that I got from this conference. And, the conference was fantastic. It was 4 days long. It ended with, going to the symphony because it was held in our Performing Arts Center here in Charleston. And so it was appropriate to have the symphony as kind of like the capstone of the conference experience. But nevertheless, there are 3 main things that kind of were points of inspiration for me that I wanted to share with you, because this has to do with life and getting older. And, we all have life realizations. And especially, as we're in this I'm in this perimenopausal state, there are things that you come across that are truly life-changing. And I continue to hear that at 40, you begin to care less about other people's opinions. And then at 50, it gets even more profound and you feel even more free. And I'm looking forward to that. But the 3 things that I took away were, 1, around food and eating and working out. So while I was at the conference, I met a woman who had traveled here to Charleston from Philadelphia. No, she's from Philly, works in Chicago. She came to Charleston for this conference specifically. And this woman, she's barely 30 years old. And we were talking about working out and workout regimen and things like that. And I told her, I said, the thing is, at this age, I work out because I have to, not because I want to. When you're in your 30s and below, you work out because you want to look good in a bikini, or you want to have a 6-pack, or you want to run the marathon, or whatever the case is. Even though I've been in the gym my whole life, I can feel it when I haven't been working out for a few days or a few weeks. And I don't mean feel it like, oh, I'm just sore. I can feel it as in, I don't think I can literally get through the workout. Which is profound to me, because I am someone I'm relatively lean, I'm relatively fit. I didn't think that would be my case, but that's essentially what life is. And in talking to her and sharing that wisdom with her, and another thing I told her was, I said, the body that I have today, I built it in my 20s. That's how this whole fitness thing works, that they won't tell you. Granted, if you're in your 40s, it's not too late to start working out. Don't get me wrong. But all I'm saying is, what you're looking at now, this was built in my 20s and my 30s. And right now, the body that I'm building is a body that I'm building for my 50s and my 60s. It just is what it is. I also talked to a number of people about food and eating, because there were people at this conference who, for the sake of their particular diagnosis, have dug really deep into nutrition and all the, what do you need to do to kind of stave off whatever cognitive decline, or, your EDS symptoms, or whatever the symptoms are that you have, Parkinson's disease, and so on. And so I was able to learn a lot from some folks. And this one gentleman in particular, who had just like 4 or 5 books that he sent to me that he's been reading, and he's like, I want to get your perspective on it, which I appreciate. So, that's kind of what led me to the collard greens for dinner tonight, is that I really wanted to dig back into eating right and eating healthy and doing the right thing by my body. And, I try to eat healthy as it is. I'm trying to go more plant-based than I am. I have a problem with protein. My body doesn't function well if I don't have like meat protein, animal protein in my body. I haven't figured that out yet, but that's just the case. So I got to get my eating back on track, and also to encourage my children to pursue healthier eating habits. I think the healthiest thing that we do as a family is, most of my cooking is homemade, most of it. Now, of course, I don't make my own ketchup. I could, but I don't. I don't make my own crackers. I could, but I don't, because convenience is helpful. But there are a number of things that I will cook from scratch, and, baked goods for one of them. Rarely do we ever, bring a cake from a grocery store. Rarely do we ever buy a box of cookies from a grocery store. And that's not a flex per se, or to discredit anybody who does do that. It's just not my style. I like cooking, and I like the way it tastes when I cook. So, if cooking is not your jam, then by all means, get your food by whatever means is appropriate for you. But I'm just saying, for me and my family, that's kind of what we've tended to do. And I want to continue on that track of doing mostly homemade, because it's when you're adding in all those preservatives and all that other stuff when your food gets questionable when it comes to health. So that was it. The next thing, besides sort of the nutrition and wellness, food and eating and working out bit, that I really wanted to get a handle on was my planner. So I am a paper planner kind of girl. And I haven't always been this way. When I was hardcore in the corporate space, everything was on, my calendar. My Outlook calendar. If it wasn't on my calendar, it didn't exist. I didn't show up, blah, 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 whatever, because it's not on my calendar, which is fine. What happened is the kids have gotten older and gotten more involved in activities. What ends up happening is you have your Outlook calendar. And for me, I had like 2 Outlook calendars, and I had the trick of forwarding all the emails that were calendar invites to, one of my other email addresses. So all of my calendars were in sync. This is the thing. I had an issue with as the kids got older, they got into activities, and each of those activities would give you a calendar. I give you a schedule, and that schedule happened to be a piece of paper. Which means I would have to manually go in and type in all those calendar invitations, which I can do, but for me, it's a lot faster just to write it down. And then I began realizing that, it's kind of like a journaling process for me. It's not that I'm trying to be antiquated with planner, with an old-fashioned planner. And one day I'm going to show you my planner process, but that's not it at all. It was just literally a matter of, this is what's convenient for me. I can write in on my planner all the dates for all the piano recitals and for all the basketball games and for all the, whoop-de-doos that have to happen. And then I can have it all in one spot. And I can overlay on top of that my work calendar or any priorities that I have at work that I need to do. And then I can also write my to-do list, which in my mind, my to-do list it's not necessarily the work and the home, it's all one big old list. And what I end up doing is sort of color coding which ones are work, which ones are home. Then I might break it out to say which ones am I going to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever, and so on, just to kind of keep myself, that's just my organizational process. So getting my planner up to date was important for me because we're heading into summer. So our schedule is going to change drastically, of course, with the kids not being in school. And I want to keep track of what camps are when, and when does the boy have to be across town, and when does the girl have to be over here for practice, like all the things. And it's a lot. The downfall of that is it means that the calendar and balancing everything now falls on my plate because everything is in my planner. And if your husband's like mine, or like, millions of people in 2026 and everything is digital and you don't do anything hard copy, then that means that all the responsibility defaults to you because you're holding the calendar. So I'm trying to do a better job of, those tasks, those items where I need for him to be involved. Or at least, the big things like the recitals or the big games and things like that, making sure they end up on his calendar so that he's aware of them and he can participate accordingly. Or even if there are things where I'm going to be out of town or I'm going to be, not able to pick up a kid or something like that, just making sure that he's fully aware and abreast of what's going on. So there's the food and eating and working out wellness piece. Number 2, there's the planner piece. Number 3, this has got to be the most profound of them all. And I like to term number 3 as getting back to myself. On this journey that I've been on in living in Charleston, Charleston's a very different kind of place. I get asked all the time, do I love living in Charleston? And my answer is always the same. I'm from Georgia, and I'm a Georgia Southern girl. not the university, but I'm from the South. I'm from Georgia South. And Georgia South and South Carolina South are two totally different things. Just like it's totally different in Alabama. Everybody has their own flavor. And I have realized that there are things in South Carolina that just won't wear on me the same. And we've been here for almost 10 years now. And I've spent 10 years kind of navigating the South Carolina waters to figure out where do I fit. And the reality is, I don't know how else to say it. It's not the best fit for me. And that's nothing against South Carolina, and it's nothing against me. It is what it is. You have square and you have round. They're both shapes, and they're both have merit, and they both have value. It doesn't necessarily mean that the square fits into the circle, or the circle fits into the square, or the square has to shrink itself in order to fit into the circle and vice versa. It's just not the best fit. But my family is happy. My kids are happy and stable. My kids are in excellent schools. My husband's doing well at work. I've been able to forge my way in terms of my consulting business and in terms of, building this connection with you and the other things that I do and work out. So all is well. Don't get me wrong. We are doing well in Charleston, and I'm very grateful for that. Is it my favorite city to live in? When we leave, I will figure that out. But what I realized at the conference was that I have not been able to be myself professionally. I just haven't. And I found that out because there were 3 state senators who came to this conference, and the purpose was to figure out or to talk about how to better collaborate from a state policy perspective with the medical work that's going on here in Charleston specifically. The night before the panel with these 3 state senators who had to drive at least 2 hours to get here after having been up super late the night prior until 9 o'clock, doing policy stuff. The night before, my husband's like, I have to find somebody to moderate this panel with the senators. At the moment, I was exhausted, but the next morning I woke up and I said, you know what, honey, if you need me to, I will moderate this panel for you. Now, mind you, I am not into South Carolina politics like that. I don't even know who these state senators are. I hadn't done any research on them, nothing. So I open my big mouth and I say, hey, if you need a moderator, I'll moderate for you. Lo and behold, at 10 a.m., my husband's like, you know what? Yeah, you go ahead and moderate that panel. Go for it. Yes, I want you to do it. And here are all the talking points. And here's the policy liaison. And here are all the notes. And here's the, month and a half of information they've been pulling together in order for this entire thing to happen. So I basically had from 10 a.m. until the panel started at 12:30, I believe, or 12 o'clock. I had 2 hours to figure it out. And what I found out in that process was that I have not been as challenged here as I would like to be. And it reminded me of the challenge that I had that I was having when, and not challenge as in struggle, but being stretched and growing, basically. It reminded me of, how I've been challenged in the past professionally, and I hadn't had that kind of professional challenge in a while. Have I had professional challenges since I've been here? Yes, I have. But in that capacity, it was different for whatever reason. And then standing on that podium, moderating that particular panel with those senators, that was particularly, kind of interesting for me as well. It was kind of like an out-of-body experience because I had not done something like that in particular in a while. And have I moderated panels before? Yes. Have I, sat and given presentations to boards and committees and important people? Yes, I have. But there was something unique about this experience that kind of just really spoke to me and gave me the sense of, man, like it's time for you to get back to yourself and back to who you are and the core of who you are. And, I guess people will call it the boss girling or whatever you want to call it. It's time for me to get back to that. And, my daughter's entering 9th grade this coming year. My son will be entering 6th grade this coming year. So it has occurred to me that now is a good time for me to start retooling and getting myself ready so that when my son is finished with high school or about finished from high school, I will have tooled up enough to be able to blast off into the professional ether once my kids are off and gone. So, it's a very exciting time. And I do want to know, comment down below if you've kind of had that feeling, especially for those of you moms out there or people who, and when I say mom, I mean anybody who has, caretaking responsibility of a child. If you have had that experience in kind of thinking about yourself and your professional trajectory, relative to where they are in life and kind of having that, aha moment of, wait a minute, this girl only has 4 more years living under our roof as a child. That's wild to me. Or my son only has 7 more years of living under my roof as a child. That is wild to me. That is a blink. And when they say that parenting goes by fast, y'all, the days are long, but the years are short, for real. So getting back to myself is another kind of point of inspiration or takeaway that I have from this conference. So all in all, it was a great conference. There were a lot of firsts for the organization that held it and a lot of excellent feedback from folks. And granted, I'm biased because it's my husband, but he really did do his best work on this conference. I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of his team because they did it. They absolutely did it. So, I'm going to kind of, call it done on this video, but I do want to thank you for being here and comment below on what your thoughts are on some of these things, these inspirations. Do those things kind of make sense to you? Do they inspire you and give you an idea of kind of what might be next for you or things to think about for yourself? Or are there things that you've realized that are different than what I've stated, but of course are worth the conversation? So comment down below and let me know. And if you would like to, I would really appreciate you subscribing and hitting the notification button so that anytime I upload that you'll have notification that I've uploaded and you can tune in and see what I have going on. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your likes. I appreciate your subscription. I appreciate you for sitting through this video and being here. And I will talk to you again sometime soon. Take care. Bye.